Hello. Hi. Hello, everyone. Hello. Thank you to whoever's joining us and whoever is watching this. I am back because we have invited the people on our VIP list to send us questions, and they have. And we are back again with some answers. So if you are not on the VIP list, please join. It's free. affordanything.com/VIP list to join the VIP list. And you can send in questions, and we select some of these questions and answer them here on Instagram Live. So thank you so much for joining. Hello to everybody who's here. And we're just going to jump right in with the first question. So our first question comes from Arden. And Arden says, quote, when I see properties that are affordable, like under $250,000 in Detroit or Indianapolis or Birmingham, etc., they all look like properties that I personally would never want to live in. I keep telling myself that they're not for me, they're for somebody else who would be happy to have an affordable duplex to live in, but then I think, ugh, I would hate living there. And I know I need to get out of this mindset, but how? It feels like any investment I make should be something that I'd want to retire to. Like the investment is for me when I retire. Why do I think that? How can I get out of this mindset? Okay, so that's an excellent question, and Arden goes on to give more detail, but I'm gonna pause here and address that question first. So it's natural, we've been socialized since early childhood to think of properties, to think of homes as a place where you live, right? And it's a very emotional space, right? It's a space where you gather with your family and your friends. It's a space where you sleep. It's a space where you, where your pets live, where your dinners. Speaking of pets, my cat wants to join. Right? This is why home is so emotional, is because this is what we think of when we think of home. And so it's natural that the mentality would then be, well, if I'm buying a home, then it's supposed to in some way be for personal satisfaction, personal fulfillment, right? It's supposed to in some way be a place that I'm buying. Your emotions don't use the phrase owner occupant or primary resident. They might not speak in such technical terms, but that's the way that we've been socialized to view homes ever since we were young. The mental shift is thinking of real estate as an asset class, right? Real estate is an asset class that, think of stocks. When you buy a share of General Electric stock, that doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to buy GE appliances to put in your kitchen. If you buy a share of Nike stock, you might still wear Adidas shoes, or you might wear Rothy's. They're one of our podcast sponsors, so it's a bit of a podcast inside joke. But also you might. Right? Like, just because you buy a stock of a particular company does not mean that you're necessarily a consumer of that company. And so the same mentality, we need to kind of work on building that same mentality when it comes to real estate. Now, the other thing, and like what I read in Arden's question is, like, I believe that this home should be for me to live in when I retire. Really what this home does is this home provides that stream of income that you can then use to acquire whatever home you want, whether it's as a rental or as an owner when you retire, right? So if you have a stream of income coming in from your rental properties in Indianapolis, you can use that income stream to pay rent or to pay a mortgage on a home in Los Angeles or in Costa Rica or in Argentina or wherever it is that you want to retire to, right? So the whole purpose of money is that it's fungible. It's a standardized unit of exchange that allows each of us to, to have the standardized medium of exchange, so we don't have to necessarily live in the assets that we hold, right? Money becomes the ultimate converter. The other thing, and I know this wasn't, well, the other way that I also kind of read Arden's question is that I think that and this is really a testament to Arden's integrity, to their principles, to their values, is there might be a sense of, hey, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And so if I personally wouldn't want to live in a particular place, can I hold that place for others? Like, can I offer tenants a place that I myself wouldn't want to live in? And the thing is, there's a difference between what is in line with your principles and your integrity versus what is in line with your personal preferences. So in terms of principles and integrity, of course, you want the space to be safe, to be, to have this minimum threshold of, like, this is a habitable space, like, for lack of a better word. It's safe, it's secure, it's habitable. Like, this is a perfectly fine, decent, respectable place for any person to live, right? That is in line with principles and integrity. But then the other piece of it is like, okay, maybe it doesn't have my personal preferences. Maybe the windows are too small and I don't feel like it lets in as much natural light, right? And all of the windows are north facing and I prefer to have south facing windows because they get better lighting. It gets better winter light. The ceiling, popcorn ceilings, and I prefer smooth ceilings, right? Stainless steel appliance, it's got white appliances instead of stainless steel, right? Those are all examples of personal preferences. And sure, you might get used to your own personal preferences. You prefer hardwood over carpet, but that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with renting out a place to a tenant that has carpeting and popcorn ceilings and north-facing windows instead of south-facing, right? Like, that's, there's someone who's going to be thrilled to live there, someone who's going to be so, so happy to live there. So those are my two responses to Arden's question. Now, Arden has a follow-up question in which they ask, Arden says, I live in a very high cost of living area, Los Angeles, and I'm a teacher. I can't afford to buy a home here, but I'm grateful to realize I can buy a home somewhere else. But in this market, will I ever be able to buy more than one? How can I make enough money on one property to turn it into two and then three? Like, I don't get that. I don't see the possibility that there's ever going to be enough money coming in from one property for that. Thank you, Vivacious Five. That's very nice. Thank you. Thank you so much. So, Arden, you're correct. The one property is not going to be enough. But the first property leads to the second, and that leads to the third, and that leads to the fourth, and eventually you get to a point of enough. And that point is going to be different for everyone. For me, like, right now, I've got 7, and they're all paid free and clear. And the income that comes from 7 properties completely, fully paid off, free and clear, for me, right now, at this point in my life, that's enough. That's not to say that I'm going to hold steadily to that forever. Like, I'm not signing that as a blood oath. Like, I reserve the right to change my mind 2 years, 3 years, 5 years into the future. But right now, I'm happy with what I've got. Whereas there are other people, their goal is to have 10, or their goal is to have 15, or for some people, their goal is to have 5. Right? So whatever your goal is, and one of the things that we do in our course, Your First Rental Property, is the first thing we do is we set our students down. We sit down with our students to walk them through this very guided exercise that helps them figure out specifically what are your goals, what are your, do you want the maximum number of properties, or do you want to maximize cash flow, which is sometimes different than maximizing properties, right? Those are two different concepts that require sometimes different approaches depending on what market you're in. Like, do you want to maximize number of properties? Do you want to maximize equity? Do you want to maximize immediate cash flow? Do you want to maximize potential cash flow down the road? Are you, like, we walk students through, do you want to focus on multifamily versus single family homes? Here are the pros and cons of each. We really walk students through a lot of goal setting so that you can have a very clear idea about start with the end in mind. What is that end that you want to achieve? And then reverse engineering from there. What do you need to do? How many properties do you need to own? And or what level of cash flow do you need to collect by when in order to meet that objective? So that is my answer to Arden's question. And Arden, thank you so much for being on the VIP list. All right, our next question comes from Jurate. And by the way, if you've just joined us, if you've joined us later, all of these questions come from people who are on our VIP list. If you're not on there, you can join for free. It's affordanything.com/VIP list. Join for free and you will be able to write in with questions. We respond to every single email, and I can't do Instagram lives for every email, but we pick a selection of them, and I also answer that selection on IG Live. So join our VIP list so that you can write in with whatever questions you have. Someone from our team will get back to you, and we'll select a random sampling of these that I will also reply to directly on Instagram. All right, so next question comes from Jurate. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And Jurate says, my only concern at the moment is that I don't yet have the funds to buy my first property. I was thinking that if I have a goal in mind to really get into the idea of buying, and I know what to look for, etc., then maybe I would be more motivated to save money for that first property. Do you think that that's the right way of thinking about it? Or would you recommend that I have the funds first and then he says join your course, but I will expand that out to and then learning about it, like really committing to learning about it. So that's a great question. So my response is I hear from so many people who including students in our course who are in a little bit of a panic because they've saved up the down payment. And sometimes that means that they've, meticulously saved slowly for years. And sometimes it means that they got a big lump sum. They got a big commission check or a big bonus at work, or, they somehow fell into a bigger lump sum than they were expecting. And all of a sudden they have $40,000 sitting in cash in a checking account. And we had 8% inflation last month. I don't know if you've noticed. We're kind of living through a high inflationary period. This is the highest inflationary period since 1981. And what that means is that this is a very, very bad time to be holding cash. And there are a lot of people who've reached out to us in a panic because they have all of this cash sitting around for a down payment, and it's losing value to inflation every day. And so they want to deploy this cash, they want to invest it, and specifically they want to invest it in rental properties. They never intended to invest this money in the stock market, and the stock market is tanking, and they want to diversify their holdings and spread their assets out across stocks, bonds, and real estate, right? So this is money that they've set aside for buying a rental property or buying investment real estate, but they don't know what they're doing yet because they never took the time to learn about it. They figured, you know what, I'll save the cash first and then I'll figure it out. And now here they are, panicking because their money's losing value to inflation. And haste often makes bad decisions. When you have the time to really incubate on a decision, to percolate on it, to gather, and this applies to really all decisions or most decisions. Haste often leads us to making poorly thought out decisions because we haven't had enough time to sleep on it, and because fear or pressure, including time pressure, drives that decision. So it's much better to take the time to learn in advance, to take the time to know what you're doing, to be able to come up with a strategy, to look at different cities or states, to look at pros and cons, to really absorb the information so that when you are ready, you aren't going to be like burning the midnight oil, panicked about like, I don't want this money sitting in a checking account in cash, but at the same time, I don't want to rush into it, but those are opposite goals, right? That's the situation that if you can avoid that, and in your particular situation, Jurate, you can avoid that. That's what I would urge you to have the foresight to avoid. So thank you for asking that question. And I also want to say, for anybody who's listening who is in the opposite situation, who's in the situation that I just described, where you do have a bunch of money sitting in a checking account, I know there are people who are watching who are in that situation, and take a deep breath. I know it's scary, but you have support. Like, don't forget, you have support. You have Afford Anything. You have this whole community. You've got people who are there with experience and knowledge and wisdom. So I know it can be scary to be sitting on that much cash, but remember, there are a lot of resources that you can tap into, and there's a great community you can tap into. There's a lot that's within your locus of control, and there's a lot of support that you have. So don't feel like you're in this alone. You've got support, you've got resources, you have the tools to be able to work through this. So that's my message to anyone who is panicking about the amount of cash that they're currently sitting on. All right, cool. So moving on, our next question comes from Julia. And Julia says, I've been enjoying the podcast and newsletter for some time now. It's shifted my mindset to real estate as an investing opportunity. And your course, Your First Rental Property, sounds interesting too. But being a resident in the Netherlands, I'm afraid many tips won't work for the Dutch market. For example, taxes are very different, and so are buying conditions. Have you had international people follow your course, and how did that work? So absolutely yes. So first of all, if you go to affordanything.com/enroll, and when you go to that webpage, at the top right-hand side of the top right-hand side of the page, that navigation bar, you'll see a thing that says Student Stories. If you click on Student Stories, you'll see a whole bunch of testimonials from our students. You can filter by location, including filtering for international students. So if you want to filter for students, for our international students, that's where you can hear from them directly. But for me, to directly answer your question, what I would say is the most important thing is learning to think like an investor, learning how to think critically, how to think strategically, how to make wise decisions. And that's not something like no one, a lot of times in school, people try to have us memorize facts, but it's very rare to learn how to think. Not what to think, but how to think. How to think through different frameworks, how to understand your different mental models and heuristics, how to start from a foundation. I like to think of a tree, right? You start from this foundation of values, right? Values, and from that comes this tree base of principles, and from that comes this tree trunk of your objectives, your goals and your objectives, and then fanning out from that, the limbs of that tree then become your strategy, like this, the strategy that you put in place in order to meet those goals and objectives. And then those are the limbs of the tree, and then the smaller branches then become tactics, right? And then after those tactics, then you've got products and services. Should I use this app or that software, right? And oftentimes, so much of the time, what I hear people talk about is people start the conversation at the level of product or tactic. So people will say, should I use such and such software, or should I, even when people say like, should I use turnkey investing, right? That's a product. And when you start the conversation from the perspective of a product, you're starting the conversation from the leaves of the tree rather than from the trunk or the root of that tree. And so oftentimes, because the leaves are the most visible part, right, and the branches are the most visible part, the products and the tactics, which are the most superficial parts, are also the most salient. They're the ones that are, that are immediately obvious. And so oftentimes we start the conversation there, and that's not where it ought to be. And so learning how to think like an investor, that comes from that tree trunk and tree root level knowledge. And that's a big piece of what we work with our students on and try to impart. And in the podcast too. Like, this is not just a video about the course. Like also, and for everyone listening who's like just not interested in the course, or this is not the right time for you, maybe you don't have the money, for whatever reason, we provide so much for free on our podcast, and through the VIP list, through the written emails that we send, where, what we really try to do in everything that we create is start at that tree trunk or tree root level. Start with the principles, the values, the objectives, and then from there go to strategy. And that's part of, it's not all of critical thinking, but that's a big piece of it. Because if you don't start with the end in mind, then you quite literally are directionless, right? Then you're just like throwing pins at the dartboard. And that is not a viable investment strategy, particularly when you have six figures on the line. So you're absolutely correct. Like any specific information that we share about taxes or about the banking system is going to be U.S. centric, but but the most important piece is learning how to think like an investor, and that is applicable anywhere and everywhere. And it's applicable not just in real estate, but like broadly. Like one thing I love about the world of investing is that it does teach you how to think. Again, not what to think, but how to think. And once you've cultivated that skill set, you can apply that to any vertical, any facet of your life. So thank you, Julia, for that question. All right, our final question that we're going to answer in this Instagram Live comes from Suzanne. And Suzanne asks, quote, "First, I want to express my gratitude for your podcast, and I can't wait to join the class." Thank you. "I'm looking to purchase my first rental property in Buffalo, New York. Everyone tells me that I should hold the mortgage rather than try to pay off the property as fast as possible. But I'm very risk averse, and I hate the thought of being in debt. I believe you've paid off your properties in full. Can you address that? I cannot imagine buying a second property until my first one is paid off, and I intend to work very hard to do that quickly." I love this. I absolutely love this. So Suzanne, I want to commend you for that level of self-awareness, right? The number one rule in investing is know thyself, right? Know thyself, because investors often go astray when they take cues from people who are playing a different game. That is a quote that comes directly out of this book, The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, which I happen to have right next to me. That's a quote that comes directly from here. He dedicates an entire chapter to talking about how investors get it wrong when they start taking cues from people who are playing a different game. So for example, let's say that you are a long-term investor. You're a long-term buy and hold index fund investor. But then you start hearing your brother's second cousin's dog sitter's best friend's second grade teacher, right, get super, super hyped up about all the crazy money that they're making investing in GameStop or AMC theaters, right, in stonks. It's entirely possible that despite the fact that you are playing a different game, you might get swayed by the shiny object over here, and you're seeing other people, friends, family, neighbors, colleagues, who are making money in these crazy things, and you start taking your cues from people who are playing a different game. And that's where investors often go astray. And the same is true with, GameStop is an easy example to choose, but think about someone who's an index fund investor versus someone who is a day trader or who is an individual stock picker, right? Those are, for many people, for literally millions of people, right? That's their philosophy, that's their strategy, that's their either profession or avid hobby, right? That's what they do, and that's how they approach the world of money. And for those, if that's not me, and that's not most of the Afford Anything audience, and if that's not you, that's amazing that you know that you are a buy and hold index fund investor. But where it becomes tricky is that when you start taking cues from day traders, then it becomes tempting to pile into a stock because it's going up. And so another point that Morgan Housel makes in this book, Psychology of Money, is that oftentimes bubbles form not because valuations rise, but because timelines diminish, right? So when long-term buy and hold investors start behaving like short-term traders, then everyone piles in for get rich quick, and that's when bubbles form. Valuations rising in and of themselves are not evidence of a bubble. The compression of a timeline, and specifically the entry into the market of people who would not normally be investing for that shortened timeline, right? When collectively as an aggregate our timelines get compressed, that is when bubbles form. It's a bit of an aside, but that is illustrative of why it's so important to not take your cues from investors who are playing a different game than you. And so, Suzanne, to get all the way back to your original question, your question was, you want to pay off your rental properties as fast as possible, but you're hearing all of these voices telling you, no, you should borrow. Like, there are so many especially in the world of real estate, there's so many people who are drunk on the leverage Kool-Aid, who are like, just borrow. If your money out of pocket is zero, your cash on cash return is infinity, right? You hear that so much. And these are investors who are playing a different game. They have a different set of values. They have a different timeline. They have different goals. They have a different strategy, right? They're playing a different game. So do not take your cues from them. Number one rule in investing is know thyself. And that's what I love about the question that you asked, Suzanne, is that you know yourself, you know what you value, you know your timeline, you know your strategy, and you you've laid it out right there. You have no reason to let other voices with other goals and timelines and philosophies and values lead you anywhere different. So thank you so much to everyone who's watching live. I really appreciate you being on. Thank you to everyone who's watching who is on the VIP list. The VIP list is such a great source of joy for me, and inspiration. So thank you to everybody who's part of this community. And I cannot wait to see you in class. And if you are not yet on the VIP list, please join. It's affordanything.com/VIP list. Completely free to join. We've got lots of great real estate information. So thank you so much. And I will see you next time. I'll see you in the next Instagram Live.